As I'm getting a bit older, I'm realizing my memory isn't so good, because I actually quoted your morning reflection in the tea time, which I'm now remembering. So one of the things that Ajahn touched upon was on renunciation, and I was speaking about that. And for someone who's tends to lean towards more greed than the other defilements, for myself, I can see that, renunciation, it's really, it takes some effort to kind of argue with the mind a bit when it comes to giving things up. And so I've, struggled with this around food, and still do, or there's difficulty around, just like you want to say something, and so that tendency towards desire can be very hard, because what is the fruition of desire in the immediate sense is like, oh, I got what I want. And so there's some sort of pleasantness that occurs. But we don't see that when we enact our desires, this is an addictive process. And what happens on the other end is that pleasantness just eventually it just falls away. Just kind of is, okay, I got what I wanted. What do I want now? And so we can see that in the mind if we're examining our own minds, whether we're meditating or we're talking to people or whatever it is we're doing. It's like, what's next? What can I get? What can I have? What's there for me? And if we just focus on that pleasant result, then we're not seeing this endless progression of desires that comes up. And we can't really see the benefit of renunciation. But when we take renunciation very seriously and we build on the sense of what Ajahn was saying with this factor of the Eightfold Path, right thought, then we have thoughts of renunciation, intentions of renunciation, then that starts to build upon itself as a habit where we can say, well, I'm okay without that, or I don't need that. Or the pointing out is with Ajahn story with the mother, that there is this sense that, when you give up everything, then you have everything because you don't need anything. And that's very hard to see when the mind is focused on what it can get, and greed is the motive. But when it's not, then there is a joy that can arise out of renunciation, out of letting go, giving up. There's a freedom that arises that is so much higher and more enjoyable than just the very short-lived experience of getting what we want, followed by getting what we want, followed by getting what we want. And so as we experiment with this, it does take this sense of a right intention, a right thought around what it is we're doing. We have to essentially talk ourselves out of all the reasons we have for trying to satisfy unwholesome desire, trying to satisfy desires that are bent on either our sensual gratification or this sense of becoming an identity, and see actually the benefit when we let go, to see the what happens, because at first there can be like, I don't want to give that up, and I gave that up, and now I don't get what I want. But then as that builds, we feel, there's really freedom, I don't need that. And the mind becomes extremely strong. And as the Buddha talks about, it becomes wieldy. So we can, in a sense, wield that sword of renunciation, we can wield that sword of giving up, letting go, and then we become ultimately warriors against our own tendencies towards greed, and we can stand against those sort of instant gratifications that we're constantly seeking, and then we let go, and we see that we're very strong in that resolve. And so therein lies the freedom, and we gain a very clear perspective on the fact that we really don't need much, and we can survive with very little, and that our desires are usually quite petty, and they're just not necessary. And then what the result of that is that we suffer so much less, and we see that we just don't need to exercise these desires. And so in the ending of that desire, then we end our dukkha.